we found that employees' well-being is declining, and so that's an issue. And then employers really cannot afford not to care about it or to do something about it, and you'll see that in some slides as we go down the chain here. So we at Steelcase have a team of people that does the only thing they do for us is research, and they look at the current state of work. They look at and project out 10 to 15 years as to how they think that people are going to work. And so I put a fair amount of our statistics in here, and I've also put some other ones in too, just depending what I thought was relevant. So this one's not ours, but it says that we spend, most people spend 36% of their time working. So that's a fair amount of time in the course of a day, a week, a month, a year. And if you notice that it says spend working, it doesn't say spend at work. Why do you think it's phrased that way? I'm gonna have to keep picking on you because there's not a lot of people in here. Why? Always working. That's what somebody said in the other one, and I have not heard that before, and that's true. You're not always working when you're at work, but we also can work from anywhere, right? So you don't have to be at work to be working, right? And that gets back to technology, and which I think is a good thing and is a bad thing, because it starts to blur the lines between home life and work life. I know I get emails, on weekends. I get them at night sometimes, and so you always have to think about, do I answer it at 10 o'clock on a Saturday? Probably not, but do I, don't I? So there's lots and lots of many more opportunities now to work than ever before. So click. This came from a survey that we did a few years ago. We spoke with somewhere around 37,000 workers, and we found that 37% of them lose up to 30 minutes a day dealing with physical discomfort. So I did this exact same presentation a couple hours ago for probably about a dozen people were in the room, and I almost always, when I talk about this, we'll poll the people and say, okay, put your hand up if you are physically not comfortable at work. And I'm not going to do it today in here, but I will tell you that at least half the people, almost always, regardless of who the audience is, will say that they are uncomfortable, as I am too sometimes. So physical discomfort is a big deal when you think about it. If it's averaging out to 30 minutes a day times, I don't know how many, just thousands and thousands of workers. It's a lot of lost productivity. At Steelcase, we look at well-being very holistically. So we don't just look at the physical issues, which is the ergonomics and stuff I'm going to start talking about, but we also look at cognitive and emotional issues. So we look at the whole person. The physical probably gets the most attention out of all of it. It's what we started talking with, so that's ergonomics. That has to do with keeping your wrists straight, bending your elbows at 90 degrees. We know that it's important to move during the day, that sort of thing. One of the issues, though, associated with it is prolonged static sitting, and so it comes about because why? Why do we sit so much? Email? Technology, right? Email is a big part of that, but we work very, very differently than we worked 50 or 40 or 60 or 70 years ago, right? Now, it's not that difficult to plop yourself down in front of your computer and just be like this all day long, right? It's very, very static. Whereas in years past, you could do some of this, but not that long before you needed to change your posture. If you worked on a typewriter, the most you could do from a repetitive standpoint was 1 page, right? You'd insert that page into the typewriter, and it was with electric typewriters, you could, you know, even if you made a mistake, you're still doing this. I don't know if you can see me or not. But if you got to when you got to the end of the page, you needed to change postures because you were changing your task. You had to roll the paper out, you had to put it down, you had to put a new one in. But when you think about your body and repetition, you've changed it up. They also used to do things like fax. And then more often than not, the fax machines would be somewhere other than at your desk. So you had to get up and walk over to it. That was pretty good for your body. Now, what do? Just this all day long. So, and we know when you sit for too long, your metabolism will slow down, right? So you're at an increased risk of gaining weight. You can hurt yourself. It's hard to stay focused. You know, it's that, you know, that, as it says, tired thinking, and it's stressful. And yet, most adults spend 50 to 70% of their time working. This is the part of the presentation where the irony comes in because everybody's sitting except me, right? And I usually walk around. It's like I'm like holding this to remind myself to stay in front of, these microphones. So you can click. The next slide is just a good, I think it's a nice indicator to show you that you sit more than you think you sit. So if you click once more. So you've got that chunk in the middle of the day when you're at work, and you feel like you go in, you sit down at your desk, you work for 4 or so hours, you have lunch, and you work for 4 more hours, give or take. But it's really more than that. And first of all, many people work through lunch, sit at their desk, myself included. If I'm at a desk at lunchtime, I'm usually working. So, you know, we're not even giving our bodies a break usually, but it goes beyond that. Because how do you get to work? Most people drive in a car, maybe take a metro, but you've got how much time that is. And in this area, it's usually, you know, an hour is pretty average, I think. I mean, we have good long commutes. Then you've got all day in the office, and then what do? You walk out of the office and you get back in your car and you sit. And then what do? You walk in the door, you go home, you walk in the door and you sit down and you eat dinner. And then what do? I don't do that very often, to sit and watch TV and read, but you know, you feasibly could do that till you go to bed. And so in the course of a day, it's really more than just the time that you're sitting at your desk, and that's the point of this. Click. New technologies. New technologies have changed a lot of things about the way that we work. And I was saying before about, you know, we're mobile now. That's because of new technologies, but they've gotten smaller, and they've put us in, or they force us into postures that we were not in previously. So it's not so uncommon for somebody to do this as a posture for working, right? You could sit, or this. And the challenge becomes so how do we support those new postures? Because the furniture, the products that are around were meant for this, really, more. So click, please. We did a global posture survey a few years ago, and I don't know how many countries and continents and people we spoke with, but it was massive. And we found that there's actually 9 new postures that people work in. This diagram is showing 6 of them. But they're all postures that didn't typically exist in the workforce before this. And again, the challenge is how do we support those postures? Okay, I'm gonna stop. Well, I'm gonna take a moment here and say, does anybody have any questions? Take that as a no. No. Remote people? No. Okay, so next we'll do cognitive. So that's the connection between your mind and your body. Click, please. Workplace noise. That's a huge one now. It's definitely something that I personally hear more of in the last couple of years than I remember hearing about, you know, in many, many years before this. Why do you think that is? Anybody? Come on. I know it's tough and there's only a couple of you, but you,
somebody's getting in like cube forms now.
But we used to be in cube forms though, right? That's been for a long time. I think, oh, excuse me?
The workplace is not as structured as it used to be. It's more relaxed. So people are communicating more.
We do collaborate more, you're right. You're on to something. Are you gonna say something?
I just say new technology again.
Yeah.
Use it,
If you don't know what, yeah. Did you say new technology is causing us to make it louder in the workforce?
Yes.
Or workplace?
Like look at your phone specifically. There's more.
Oh, yeah.
There's all kinds of alerts.
There's,
people use their phone for music, so they're,
you're right.
People are always looking at videos and things on their phone.
Yeah. Instead of working. There's not really a right or a wrong answer. My opinion is because of the trends in the workforce or the workplace now. So the trend now is to bring people out of offices. When we have new opportunities, new projects, almost always it's rare that more people are going to go into offices in the new space or the renovated space, right? It's to bring them out to collaborate more. The other trend is that the height of the panels tends to come down. So we've been in cubes for a long time, but it used to be they would be like this high, like 65 inches or even 80 inches high, and they provided a level of acoustic privacy. They helped absorb some of that sound. Now, they're like this high, like in the 42, 40, you know, or maybe you're sitting down and you can't see over, but if you stand up, you can. It's at about 48 inches high, which provides basically no help for the acoustics. Some of the other things that I see are workstations are getting smaller, by and large, and we're always being asked to fit more people on the floor. So now you've got more people closer together in a space with lower panels. And so I think that, who are collaborating more, so they're talking more. And I think because of that, it makes for a louder workplace. I will so often hear people talk about what nets out to be speech privacy. So the problem is you're out in the open and they're in like a benching, or you know, you're right next to your neighbor and right across there's a lot of people all over the place, and they need to have a phone conversation, either a private conversation they don't want somebody to hear, or they have a conversation that they just feel that it's not that it's private, but that it's just going to be annoying, which it is if you're trying to work, and they don't have a place to go to do it. So it's an issue. We'll just leave it at that. Can you click, please? And there's a 66% decrease in productivity due to constant noise in the workplace. And the human voice is one of the most distracting sounds to a person. So in terms of being able to focus, be engaged with your work and be productive, it can be a real challenge in the workplace today. Click. Another issue. So we've got more information coming at us much faster than we ever had before. Why is that?
Email, text, we're more available than we used to be.
Technology, right? It goes so quickly. And what it does is it puts you in overload almost, I think, and it's stressful. I've decided recently, because there's parts in here about stress and all that, and I've decided recently that I think being stressed has become sort of the new norm. I mean, I don't go a day without hearing somebody talking about how stressed they are, myself included. And so I think that it's a lot has to do with when stuff comes at us so quickly, and then there's very high expectations in terms of responding to it, and you know, you're always available. You know, before you pretty much had to be in your office to be working, and when you walked out, you were finished for the day. You might be thinking about the stuff, but you weren't really so reachable. Now, I mean, you know, it's just almost like, why haven't we heard from so-and-so in the last 10 minutes, you know? Anyway, please. The maximum number of items that we can hold in our mind at once is between 4 and 7 items. I don't even know if I can do that, to be honest with you. I think that's hard, but so says this statistic. You're gonna click one more time. And you want to talk about overwhelm. So we receive 11 million bits of information every second, but we're only capable of processing 40 bits of information every second. So that's why everybody's stressed all the time, right? I mean, there's a huge gap between 40 and 11 million. It's overwhelming. Good. And there's a cost associated with it, right? All that stress costs, and to the tune of $300 billion a year. There's a lot that goes into that, though. You know, those are physical issues, those are emotional issues, there's loss of productivity, that there's a cost associated with it, so it's a lot, but it's still $300 billion is a lot, no matter how you slice it. Okay, so that's cognitive. Questions on that? Anybody? Does it sound like it's getting louder out there? Because there's people breaking down their, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to emotional now, that's your ability to be creative, to be engaged, and innovative. Growing worker disengagement is a really big issue. There's been a lot of studies done on it. We did a really big engagement study or survey not that long ago, and the statistics were staggering. If you can click, please. So it's been said that the average number of people that are engaged in their work are 11%. So that means there's 89% of the workforce that is either neutral, meaning they're not really engaged or disengaged, they're kind of just, you know, there, or they are actively disengaged. That's huge. On our survey, I think our number was 13%, so a little bit better, but still, even whether it's 11% or it's 13%, it still means that the vast majority of people are not actively engaged. One of the issues associated with that is distributed teams, meaning you don't need to be in the same office or the same building to be a part of the same team. So we're very dispersed. In my company, we're all over the place, all over the world. And so a lot of the support that I have is not a lot, but some of the support that we have is not necessarily even in the United States. And so you lose something with that. We call it presence disparity, but you know, when you don't have physical, you know, a contact with somebody, you're not in the same room with them, you can't see eye to eye, you know, look into their eyes. It's hard to develop true relationships and friendships. I always think about getting on a conference call versus being in an actual live meeting. How do you feel when you're on your phone or a phone on a call versus how do you feel when you're sitting around a table with somebody or with people? There's definitely a difference. Click, please. Okay, so now I'll step off of my well-being soapbox, and unless there's questions. So that's kind of netting all that out. And then what I did for the second half of this, the second part of this is I says the furniture on there, because I often get many questions about how do I adjust this, where should this be, how should that be? So I thought I would just sort of talk through that, if that's okay. You click. There's three key components in my ergo world in a workstation. It's going to be the chair, it's going to be the desk, and if you click one more time, and monitor arms. And so, does anybody here have a desk that goes up and down? It adjusts? I'm sorry. And you do too? Yeah. Okay, so I covered both in here because I didn't really know. I've been in the Target Center and the cafeteria, and that's it. I don't know how the people here work. So if you don't mind clicking, please, one more time. Starting with some tips. I'm going to try and get you a little engaged here. So get ready to give me feedback. I'm sorry. Get ready to give me feedback here. Tell me, obviously, the woman with the green circles and lines is the right way to do things, and the red is not right. Tell me what's going on and why is that in red? Somebody. Anybody. Chair is too high? Is that what you said? You're right. You can't really see it you can't see it very well because it's all about the thighs. You want your thighs to be parallel to the floor, okay? And the reason that I say that is when they're not, if a chair's too high, your thighs are sloped down, and what that does is it puts pressure underneath of there. And so what the body does usually is it compensates for that. In this instance, her body is compensated by putting her feet up on the base of the chair. But what does that do to her thighs? Raises them up, and now they're parallel, right? So you want the blood to flow freely, right? You don't want to, it's not comfortable after a while. She's also sitting forward in her chair, and both of these two things are pretty common when I walk through spaces. I see people doing that a lot. If you're sitting forward in your chair, you're not getting any support from it. So it's not really doing you any good. Your back is hopefully shaped like an S, your spine. And when you sit forward, the bottom part, the lumbar part of your spine starts to straighten out a little bit, right? And that's not comfortable, and that's from that leaning forward. And so if you've got a chair with a good curved lumbar support on the back of it, stay back in it to help maintain your own curve. Make sense? All right, keep going here. The same can be said for standing. So you want that same posture, and I usually demonstrate it. I don't know if I can do it back here. I can't walk, though, do it, right? They're not going to be able to see me.
They'll see you on camera, they probably won't hear you.
Oh, all right. I'll do it twice. How about that? Okay. So as just sort of a guideline, what I always tell people is if I stand here like this, my shoulders are relaxed, my arms are hanging down. This is neutral. The only thing I just did was bend my elbows, and now I'm in a very neutral position to work on a computer. Okay, that's whether you're sitting or whether you're standing at your desk, that's the posture you want to mimic. And I'm just going to walk around here so you guys can see. I was just like this, and then like this. Okay? The one in red on the right is leaning forward, and so you can see his back is not straight, and the the angle of his elbow is not near. Should it be? What angle should it be at? So if I start at A and look at, in terms of the height of your monitor, when you look straight ahead, you should be seeing the top of the screen, kind of near where the toolbar is. That way, when you're looking at the rest of the screen, you're looking down slightly, which is the neutral position for your neck. If you think about how you read a magazine, it's down like this, it's not like this. So make sure that your monitor isn't too high or too low. In terms of distance, it says 15 to 30 inches. That's a pretty big range here, but as rule of thumb is approximately an arm's length. It really depends on, I mean, I have bad eyes, so I probably need to, and long arms, so I probably need to move myself up a little bit. You want to really be as far as you can be from your monitor, but still be able to comfortably and easily see the screen. If you move yourself away too far and you can't see the screen, you're going to just end up leaning in and squinting, right? But it's easier on your eyes to see things at a distance than it is close up. I talked about elbows already, and you don't want them out, right? You want them in close to your body. If they're out, it's kind of like a chicken like this, so that's not good for your shoulders. It says footrest or flat feet. So in terms of the order that you adjust things in, first thing you're going to do is adjust the height of your chair. If you have a height adjustable desk, adjust the height of the chair so that your thighs are parallel and your feet are flat on the floor. And then you do your desk down so that you can get your arms neutral and then your monitors, if they're on a monitor arm. If you have a fixed height work surface, you'll still adjust your chair first, but you may have to adjust it up instead of down. And if that's the case, you do it so that your arms are, are being supported, but you're not too high and you're not too low with it. And then if you need a footrest or something under your feet, do that. And then the last thing, do your monitor. And make sure your back is against the backrest. Okay, next one, please. And then, for the standing one, I mean, it's not too dissimilar. You want your feet to be at approximately the width of your shoulders. Make sure your knees aren't locked in, and change it up. I'm always asked, how many minutes should I spend sitting versus standing? And I would say you shouldn't stand all day and you shouldn't sit all day. Mix it up. Rule of thumb is maybe take 15 minutes every hour and stand up. I'm going to keep going. I think the rest of the slides are, can you click, please? Okay, the what not to do. Oh, sorry, yeah.
So if you don't have the option to have a stand-up or sit down desk, or if you have the ability to get up and do move around throughout the day, like is one still better? Should you still be trying to get stand-up desk? Is one better than the other? Or is it more just either one, but that your posture is correct?
You mean if you either standing all day or sitting all day?
So say you did have an option to get a stand-up desk or not. Is one better than the other, or is it really as long as you have the correct posture for that setup?
And you mean a stand-up desk that's just fixed at a standing height?
Correct.
I would say do that if you can, because you still need a chair, right? So you'd probably have a stool, right? You're not going to have a desk at work with no chair at all. Am I correct? Or are you thinking about at home?
No, I guess.
I don't think I've ever seen that. You will, but I've seen desks that are or countertops that are up higher. But if you can get it so that you are at an appropriate, comfortable position in a stool, then you get to stand and sit. I wouldn't stand all day. If you have to stand all day versus sit all day, I would guess maybe a lower desk, and then you get up and move around a little bit, if that's. So the next set of slides, actually, or the last set of slides, are my colleague Stephanie. She lives out in the Midwest. She does what I do for Steelcase, and she had somebody take her picture in lots of awkward postures, and so this is where I tend to try and get the audience participation in here, and these are bad postures that you should not do. So if we look at Stephanie in posture number 1, one more click, please. Yeah, those weren't Stephanie. Those were that's Stephanie. What's good and bad about what she's doing? Maybe I should just say what's bad. Sorry? Yes, her monitor's too high. See what she's doing? But that's a common height. If you want, now you're going to walk through your office space with a whole different set of eyes when you go back to your desk, right? But it's very common to see monitors that are up too high, and it's uncomfortable over time to have to arch your neck like that. So her monitor's too high. Look what she's sitting on her leg. That's common too.
Too high too, right?
Sorry?
Is the desk too high?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. She's up like this with her shoulders, right? Okay, so all not so good things. Okay, next one. There's about a half a dozen or so of these slides. Anything wrong with that? Yep. She can't even, I don't even think she can reach the floor there, right? So that's not good. What else is wrong? Her desk is high. She's leaning forward, good. See, you got like your ergo vision going now. One more thing. Her desk is too high, she's leaning forward. How about the monitor? It is too low, right? She's sitting like this. Not so good. I'll give you the last thing, just because I'm feeling generous today. It's off to the side. You don't want your monitor to be over on the side. You've got to bend or turn either your torso or your neck in order to see it. Does anybody use just one monitor? Okay, the rest of you have 2? 3? You have 4? Oh. Okay, so usually people have 1 or 2. So if you have 1, obviously you want the 1 to be right in front of you. If you have 2, was there anybody in here? Do you have 2? You have 2? Okay. So for people who have 2, decide whether you use them the same amount or not, amount of time. If you do use them the same amount of time, you want them to be right next to each other at the same distance so that you don't have to, it's easier on your eyes, so they don't have to, readjust to looking at something further versus closer. So you should be seeing like the seam of the 2 monitors together. So it's the least amount of repetition on your neck. If you have 2 monitors and you use one as a primary and one is really a secondary, you might want to think about making the primary be in front of you, if that's where you're spending most of your time, and then pushing the secondary one off to the side. Okay, next slide, please. Anything wrong with that, or it's all good? Her shoulders are hunched, and that's so common. We do that a lot, right? And we're already tense in here to begin with. You don't want to make it worse. Look how low her monitor is, right? She can see way over the top of it, so she's got, it's not good for your neck to look down like that either. How are the feet? I can't see from this angle in this picture.
She has them tucked back. She's up, I think they're on the
Yeah, she's still got feet thing going too. You really want to keep the blood flowing.
What about people who work from their laptop all day?
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to monitor.
Well, I mean, when laptops were originally designed, they were not designed to be a primary computer, right? But they have become. In our world of mobility, they have become primary computers. I use one. You can get a stand for the laptop and use the screen of the laptop as sort of as a monitor, and maybe use an external keyboard and mouse. That's one way to get yourself neutral. If you don't have any of those things, I mean, there's limits to what you can do with the laptop alone. So dock it is another thing to do. Anybody else? Okay, click. Anything wrong with that one? Everything. You can't even see your feet, so you really shouldn't sit cross-legged, right? It's not a great idea. look how high that monitor is. Look what she's doing, right? So she's making a point to us here for sure. And look at her arms. The desk is up high. Her chair is too low for the height of that work surface. Because you see her shoulders and her arms, they're out sort of like this instead of back here. I think there's only maybe, is this, oh no, there's more than this one. Okay, so for this one, obviously, the work surface is way too high, and so her monitor is way too high as well. You want to click again, please? And you definitely don't want to hang on the work surface either. You want to be able to stand up straight with your arms in a neutral posture when you work. And, oh, she did a lot. I put more in here than I remembered.
That one's almost good, right? Except for the monitor on the side.
Monitor's too low. Look how low that monitor is. But yeah, it's over to the side. And people, we sometimes did, I mean, I don't know how your workstations are set up, but I see people putting their monitors still in the corners. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to do that. We don't have the big CRTs anymore that we used to have to put in the corner. We all have flat screens, so not so necessary, but you definitely don't want to twist your body. And one more, please. That's the last one. The pelican, right? Definitely don't want to do that. Both feet go on the floor. Other than that, though, than the foot thing, that's a pretty good posture. So I think she's got it down pat. And I believe that was the last slide. So there you have it. I know we were kind of going back and forth with questions, but you know, before